I snatched my passport from Sarah's shaking hand the moment she whispered, "Michael, I need to tell you something about Derek." Before another word left her lips, I pivoted toward the security checkpoint without acknowledging her. "Wait, please just listen," she pleaded behind me, her voice breaking in the packed terminal. I kept moving forward. 5 years of building a life together, a carefully planned 2-week escape to Rome. And she picked this exact moment 30 minutes before our international departure to mention her ex-boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend who had apparently just messaged her. The ex-boyfriend she absolutely had to see before we boarded the plane. "Michael, stop." Sarah's fingers wrapped around my forearm, her painted nails pressing into my jacket sleeve. "It's not what you're thinking. Derek's dealing with something serious and I just need 15 minutes to speak with him. He's waiting in the parking structure. I'll come right back. I swear." I pulled free from her grip and met her hazel eyes directly. Those same eyes that had gazed at me across candle-lit tables. Those same eyes that had filled with tears when I'd surprised her with this vacation 3 months earlier. "You want to abandon me at the airport with all our belongings to rush off and meet your ex-boyfriend? It's only 15 minutes. We don't board for another hour." She checked her phone screen. He traveled all this distance. It would be heartless to just dismiss him. Then go. I shifted my carry-on bag higher on my shoulder. "But I won't be standing here waiting." Her complexion went white. "You can't mean that, Michael. We have tickets we can't refund. We've been organizing this for months. You should have considered that before you decided Derek's emotions were more important than our trip." I opened my airline application on my phone. "I'll see you when I return. Or maybe I won't. You're being completely unreasonable." Her voice climbed higher, attracting attention from passing travelers. "It's just a conversation. He's going through something terrible, and I'm the only person he feels comfortable confiding in." "Comfortable confiding in about what?" "His plan to convince you to leave me." I shook my head firmly. "I'm not participating in this, Sarah. Not here. Not now. Not ever." She changed her approach, her eyes filling with moisture. "Please, sweetheart, don't destroy 5 years because you're feeling threatened. I love you. I'm simply trying to be compassionate towards someone who's hurting." A compassionate person would have mentioned this before arriving at the airport. I started walking again. "Make your decision." "Fine," she shouted, frustration replacing the tears. "Fine, I'll speak with him for 10 minutes, and you'd better be standing right here when I return. We're mature adults, Michael. We should be able to handle this rationally." I turned one final time. "If you walk away right now, we're finished. Completely finished. No second opportunities, no explanations later, no excuses about coming back. Done." She hesitated, glancing between her phone screen and my face. Her thumb floated over the display. Then she straightened her posture. "You're being possessive and insecure. Derek deserves basic human kindness. I'll be back in 15 minutes and we can discuss why you're behaving this way." She walked away, her shoes clicking against the terminal floor, rolling her small suitcase behind her. I waited exactly 30 seconds to see if she would turn around. She didn't. I pulled out my phone and modified my ticket to single passenger, paying the $200 change fee without hesitation. Then I arranged for her 2 large suitcases to be checked with the airline's baggage service, setting them up to be held at Rome's airport under her name. I kept my carry-on and my self-respect. When I reached the security checkpoint, I sent her one message. "Your bags will be waiting in Rome under your name. We're done. Don't reach out to me again." I blocked her number before she could type a response. The security officer examined my boarding pass and identification with routine efficiency. As I walked through the metal detector, I felt a burden lift from my shoulders that I hadn't even recognized I'd been carrying. The weight I didn't know I carried. Looking back now, I understand that burden had been present for months, possibly longer. The persistent sensation that I was always one step away from being a backup priority in Sarah's world. There had been warning signs before this incident. Small details I'd rationalized or dismissed. The pattern of her canceling our arrangements if certain friends contacted her with emergencies. How she'd constantly monitor her phone during our date nights, always with a logical explanation. The evening she'd vanished for 3 hours during my birthday celebration because an old roommate desperately needed to talk. I'd been understanding, supportive, accommodating. I'd been foolish. The flight attendant greeted me aboard with a genuine smile. I settled into my window seat. Originally, we'd reserved the aisle and middle seats together. I accepted a complimentary glass of wine. As the aircraft pushed away from the gate, I felt my phone buzzing repeatedly in my pocket. I didn't check it. By the time we reached our cruising altitude, I changed my email password, removed her from my emergency contact list, and began documenting everything in my apartment that belonged to her. The passenger in the aisle seat, a distinguished gray-haired executive named Robert, noticed my expression. "You have the look of someone who just made a difficult decision." "The most difficult part was realizing it actually wasn't difficult," I said. He laughed. "I've been married 32 years. You know why? Because my wife and I decided from the beginning that we'd never make each other feel like an option. You're either the priority or you're gone." "Sounds like you just figured that out. 5 years too late. Better late than never. I know people who wasted entire decades." He raised his plastic cup of whiskey to not wasting decades. I touched my wine glass against it. To not wasting decades. Rome welcomed me with brilliant sunshine and the scent of espresso. I checked into our hotel, now exclusively mine, and the concierge smoothly changed the reservation to single occupancy without probing questions. The room featured a balcony overlooking Piazza Navona, and I sat there for an hour with cappuccino and cornetto, feeling lighter than I had in months. My phone exploded with messages once I disabled airplane mode. I glanced at them only long enough to confirm they were from Sarah's friends, her younger brother, and several unidentified numbers. 47 messages in total, plus 19 missed calls. I deleted everything and changed my number at a local mobile store that afternoon, preserving only my work contacts and closest friends. Before I eliminated everything, I did see one message from Sarah's brother, Alex, who I'd always respected. "Michael, I don't understand what happened, but Sarah is completely distraught. She says you abandoned her at the airport. She needs to speak with you. Please call." I responded once. "Ask her why she left me standing at the airport to meet Derek. Ask her why she thought that was acceptable behavior. Then ask yourself if you'd accept that from your wife." "I'm finished, Alex. Tell her to stop contacting me." Alex wrote back immediately. She explained about Derek. She said it was only to talk. She said she returned immediately, but you were already gone. She made her choice. I made mine. Goodbye, Alex. I blocked him as well. That evening, I encountered 2 Canadian travelers at a wine bar near the Pantheon. Justin and his friend Rebecca were entertaining, adventurous, and had zero interest in my background beyond the fact that I was traveling solo and needed a fresh start. We spent 3 days exploring ancient ruins, getting lost in charming side streets, and laughing over bottles of Chianti. On the 3rd evening, Rebecca asked the question I'd been avoiding. "So, what's the actual story?" Americans don't typically do 2-week solo trips to Rome without a reason. I told them about the airport, the ultimatum, the choice Sarah made. Justin whistled softly. "Brother, you absolutely did the right thing. Most people think I overreacted." I admitted her friends certainly believed that. Rebecca shook her head emphatically. "Most people are too afraid to stand up for themselves. They'd rather stay comfortable than be respected. You respected yourself enough to walk away. That requires real courage." It didn't feel like courage. It felt like survival. Sometimes those are the same thing. Justin said, "Look, my ex-girlfriend betrayed my trust and I forgave her. You know what happened? She did it again and I forgave her again. The 3rd time she didn't even apologize, just expected me to accept it. I finally left, but I wasted 2 years. I'll never recover." You walked away at the first clear sign of disrespect. That's not overreacting. That's clarity. Their words settled something inside me. I hadn't been harsh or impulsive. I'd been clear about my boundaries. They invited me to continue their Mediterranean journey with them. Positano, the French Riviera, and the Croatian coast. I agreed without hesitation. I extended my 2-week vacation to 4 weeks using the remote work arrangement my company had recently introduced. My supervisor, Patricia, was surprisingly supportive when I contacted her. "Michael, you've been with us 7 years and never taken more than 1 week off. Take the time. You've more than earned it. Just keep your phone available for genuine emergencies." There were no emergencies. In Nice, I met an investment consultant named Gregory who was impressed by my assessment of the technology sector over dinner at a restaurant overlooking the Mediterranean. We'd been seated at neighboring tables, and he'd overheard me explaining blockchain developments to Justin and Rebecca. He introduced himself, purchased us a round of drinks, and within an hour, we were deeply engaged in conversation about market patterns and emerging innovations. "You work in financial services?" he asked. "Financial consulting, technology sector specialization." He handed me his business card. "My company is constantly searching for people who can communicate complex concepts clearly. That's incredibly rare. Contact me when you're back in the country." By the time I returned home, I'd acquired a tan, lost 17 pounds from all the walking and swimming, made numerous international connections, and had 3 job interviews scheduled, including one with Gregory's company. My apartment felt foreign when I entered. I'd been gone long enough that Sarah's absence had become part of the atmosphere. Her key sat on the kitchen counter with a note I initially didn't read. She'd collected her belongings, clothing, books, the expensive espresso machine she'd insisted on purchasing. She'd left the furniture we'd bought together, the photographs from our travels, and a pile of mail addressed to me. I discarded the photographs first. Then I sat down and read her note. Michael, I made a horrible mistake. I understand that now. Derek lied to me about why he needed to see me. His father isn't sick. He simply wanted to manipulate me into meeting him. I realized that 5 minutes into our conversation and rushed back to the airport, but you were already through security. I tried calling, tried messaging. I even asked security if they could deliver a message to you, but they said you'd already boarded. I flew to Rome the following day, but you'd already checked out of the hotel. I've been desperately trying to reach you for weeks. Please, please call me. We can repair this. 5 years has to mean something. I love you. I'm so sorry. Please, Sarah. I read it twice, then fed it through my paper shredder. She turned around. She'd recognized her mistake, and it changed absolutely nothing. The problem wasn't whether she'd actually talked to Derek or for how long. The problem was that she'd prioritized his manufactured crisis over our relationship. She'd been willing to leave me standing in an airport looking ridiculous while she ran to comfort someone who'd manipulated her. The fact that she'd realized it was manipulation only proved my point. She'd been so eager to help him that she hadn't even questioned his story. Building something better. I sold the furniture through online marketplaces and redecorated with a minimalist aesthetic I'd always preferred, but she dismissed as too sterile. I adopted a dog from the local animal shelter, a 4-year-old mixed breed named Zeus that Sarah would have rejected because of her allergies. Zeus had been surrendered by a couple going through a divorce. The shelter coordinator told me he was loyal, protective, and needed someone who'd truly commit to him. I can do that, I told her. Zeus and I connected immediately. He slept beside my bed, accompanied me on morning runs, and seemed to understand that we'd both been abandoned by people we trusted. We were constructing something new together. The position with Gregory's company materialized 8 weeks after I returned. The interview process was rigorous, 3 rounds, including a presentation to senior partners on emerging market opportunities. But Gregory had advocated for me internally, and my analysis apparently impressed the leadership team. They offered me more than double my current salary, superior benefits, and an office in downtown Chicago. I submitted my resignation immediately. Patricia was disappointed but understanding. You've been underpaid here for years. I tried to get you promoted twice, but corporate kept delaying. Go earn what you deserve. My final 2 weeks at the old company were bittersweet. I developed solid friendships there, acquired valuable experience, but I'd also become too comfortable. Sometimes the best thing that can happen is someone forcing you to make a change you were too afraid to make yourself. Sarah had forced that change. I found a high-rise apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lakefront. It cost more than Sarah and I had paid for our shared place, but I could afford it now. Zeus loved the nearby parks, and I loved walking through the neighborhood where I didn't have memories of her around every corner. 4 months after the airport, I encountered Sarah's closest friend, Jennifer, at a coffee shop near my old neighborhood. I was there collecting the last of my forwarded mail. Michael. She looked genuinely startled. Oh my goodness, you look fantastic. Did you lose weight? Somehow. How are you, Jennifer? She shifted uncomfortably. I'm well. Listen, I know it's not my business, but Sarah's been really struggling. She wanted me to reach out if I ever ran into you. That's unfortunate. I added cream to my coffee, but not my concern. She made a mistake. She recognizes that now. Derek told her his father passed away and she panicked. She felt obligated because his father had always been welcoming to her when they dated, but it was completely fabricated. His father is perfectly fine. He just wanted to see her. I'm sorry she fell for that manipulation, but it doesn't change anything. I moved toward the exit. Jennifer followed. She didn't even speak with him. She got halfway to the parking structure and turned around, but you were already through security. She tried to catch you, Jennifer. I blocked her for a reason. I don't care if she turned around. She made her choice when she walked away. What happened afterward doesn't interest me. She lost her position. The stress caused her to mishandle a critical client presentation, and they eliminated her position during downsizing. Jennifer's voice took on a pleading tone. She's really struggling. She moved back with her parents. She talks about you constantly about how she destroyed the best relationship in her life. I paused at the entrance, not because I felt sympathy, but because I needed Jennifer to understand clearly. Sarah had a choice at that airport. She chose to prioritize someone who was manipulating her over someone who valued her. That's not a mistake. That's a revelation of character. What happened afterward is simply the consequence of her choice. You're really not going to give her another chance after 5 years. I gave her a chance at the airport. She didn't take it. I opened the door. I hope she figures everything out, but it won't be with me involved. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. She predicted you'd say something like that. She said you'd become heartless. I became clear. There's a significant difference. Take care, Jennifer. Jennifer caught the door before it closed. Michael, wait. You should know something else. Derek's been posting about her on social media, calling her his greatest regret. He's been messaging her constantly, even though she blocked him. She had to consider legal action. The guy is obsessed. She understands now that he's been trying to sabotage every relationship she's had since they separated. He did the same thing when she was dating Brandon previously. Called Brandon claiming there was an emergency and Brandon believed her when she said nothing happened. You didn't because Brandon was naive. Good for Brandon if that worked for him. I adjusted my bag. Sarah chose to entertain Derek's manipulation. She chose to believe his obvious lie. She chose to leave me at an airport. Those were her decisions. If Derek is harassing her, she should contact the authorities. But that still has nothing to do with me. Don't you care that she's suffering? I care about suffering in general. I hope she gets help if she needs it. But I'm not responsible for fixing the consequences of her decisions. She's an adult. She made adult choices. Now she's dealing with adult consequences. Jennifer wiped her eyes. She genuinely loved you. She still does. Love isn't just an emotion, Jennifer. It's a series of choices. When it mattered, she chose incorrectly. I softened my voice slightly. Look, I genuinely hope Sarah finds happiness. I hope she learns from this experience. I hope she figures out why she was so willing to abandon everything for someone who was clearly manipulating her. But she needs to do that work without me. I'm not her safety net, her backup plan, or her redemption story. I'm just someone who used to know her. I left Jennifer standing in the coffee shop doorway and didn't look back. That night in my new apartment with Zeus sleeping on his bed, I thought about what Jennifer had said about Sarah's suffering, about Derek's harassment, about the job loss and the move back home. Part of me, the part that had cared for her for 5 years, felt a small amount of sympathy. But sympathy wasn't the same as responsibility, and it certainly wasn't the same as reconciliation. The lesson learned. I'd learned something crucial at that airport. You teach people how to treat you. If I'd waited for Sarah, if I had swallowed my feelings and gone on that trip, I would have taught her that my boundaries were negotiable, that she could prioritize other men over me, and I'd accept it as long as she returned eventually. Some people call that forgiveness. I call it self-betrayal. I didn't see or hear from anyone in Sarah's circle after that conversation with Jennifer. I heard through mutual acquaintances the kind of information that travels through social media despite best efforts that Sarah had relocated to Denver for a fresh start, accepting a position that paid significantly less than her previous role. Someone mentioned she'd begun therapy, which I thought was genuinely beneficial for her. Another person said she'd gained weight and was struggling with depression. I felt nothing hearing this. Not satisfaction, not pity, just nothing. She was a chapter I'd closed and I'd moved on to better stories. 7 months after Rome, I attended a technology conference in Seattle for my new company. During a networking reception on the hotel's rooftop terrace, I started conversing with a cybersecurity specialist named Lauren. She was intelligent, witty, and straightforward in a way I found refreshing. She asked me to dinner without pretense or games, and I agreed immediately. We talked for 4 hours about everything. Careers, travel, literature, the absurdity of modern dating, our backgrounds, our aspirations. When she asked if I'd been in serious relationships, I told her about Sarah briefly. Matter-of-factly, the way you'd explain any other biographical detail. So, you just left her there? Lauren asked, sipping her wine. I gave her a clear choice. She made it. That's incredibly decisive. Most people would have waited, argued, created a scene. Most people waste years of their life hoping someone will change. I'd rather be alone than disrespected. She smiled. I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. My ex-fiancé used to say I was too confrontational, too demanding because I expected basic respect and honesty. He's my ex-fiancé for a reason. How long were you together? 4 years. 3 of them were solid. The 4th year, he started spending excessive time with his coworker Amanda. He insisted it was innocent. Then I discovered messages that were decidedly not innocent. He wanted couples therapy, wanted to work through it. I wanted to end the relationship. Did you get resistance for that decision constantly? His family thought I was being unforgiving. My own sister told me relationships require compromise. I told her compromise doesn't include betrayal. She set down her wine glass. People confuse self-respect with selfishness. They're completely different things. We maintained a long-distance relationship for 4 months. Seattle to Chicago was manageable with our travel schedules. We'd meet in different cities for conferences, take weekend trips, video chat most evenings. It was effortless in a way my relationship with Sarah never had been. No drama, no tests, no wondering if I was important to her. Just 2 adults who enjoyed each other's company and made effort to prioritize that. Then Lauren received a job offer in Chicago. She called me while I was walking Zeus along the lakefront. "So I have news," she said. "Remember that position I interviewed for at that fintech startup in the Loop, the security architecture role? They offered me chief security officer, full equity package, benefits, substantial salary increase. It's everything I wanted professionally, Lauren." "That's incredible. Congratulations." There was a pause. "It would mean relocating to Chicago." "I know. Is that acceptable to you? Are you asking my permission?" "No, I'm asking if it's something you want because I want it. I want the position and I want to be in the same city as you. But I need to know you want that as well." "I want that." The words came easily. Naturally. "I want that very much." She moved into her own place in Lincoln Park 7 weeks later. We continued seeing each other without pressure or discussion of living together immediately. We were building something at our own pace without anyone else's timeline or expectations. 1 year after the airport incident, I was promoted to senior director at the company. It came with a substantial raise, a team of 7 analysts reporting to me, and a level of professional respect I'd never experienced at my old firm. Gregory took me to lunch to celebrate at a restaurant that required reservations months in advance. "You know why I hired you?" he asked over appetizers. "My portfolio analysis was strong." "That too, but mainly because when I asked about my personal situation, you told me you just walked away from a 5-year relationship at an airport and went to Europe instead. That showed me you could make difficult decisions without second-guessing yourself. That's extremely rare." He raised his glass to difficult decisions and not second-guessing. I touched my glass against his to not second-guessing. "You know what the problem is with most people?" Gregory continued. "They let sunk costs dictate their future. I've already invested 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, so I can't leave now. But that's exactly backward. The time you've already spent is gone. The only question that matters is, do you want to spend your future like this? Most people can't answer that. Honestly, I got fortunate. She forced me to answer it. That wasn't fortune. That was you having clear boundaries and maintaining them. Most people have boundaries until someone tests them. You didn't compromise. That evening, Lauren and I took Zeus for a walk along the lakefront. The autumn air was crisp and the trees were turning gold and crimson. She'd been quiet during dinner, and I knew something was on her mind. "I received an offer," she said finally. "Chief Security Officer for a multinational corporation. Full equity comprehensive benefits. The works. That's tremendous." "Where?" "Singapore. 3-year contract minimum." My stomach tightened slightly, but I kept walking. "That's a massive opportunity." "It is." She stopped and turned to me. "I want you to come with me to Singapore. Your firm has an Asian office." I verified. They're always seeking senior people. Gregory's company has international placement programs. You could transfer or you could take your experience and pursue something new. Or she took a breath. "You could say this is too fast, too much, and I'd understand. But I'm asking because I want you there. Not because I need you, but because I want to build something with someone who knows his own mind." I thought about the airport, about Sarah's expression when I told her to make her choice, about the past year of my life, the freedom, the growth. The absolute clarity that came from walking away from someone who didn't value me. "How much time do I have to decide?" 4 weeks. "Give me 1 week." She nodded and we continued walking. I didn't need a week. I needed time to do it properly, to discuss international opportunities with Gregory, to research Singapore, to ensure I was moving towards something I wanted, not just following someone. But I also needed to sit with the decision to make sure I was choosing Lauren for the right reasons. By day 5, I'd had 3 conversations with the Singapore office, researched neighborhoods that would accommodate Zeus, and talked to my financial advisor about international tax considerations. The Singapore office was enthusiastic about the possibility of me transferring. Apparently, Gregory had already mentioned me to his counterpart there, and they'd been hoping I'd eventually consider an international assignment. I called Lauren on day 7. Start looking at apartments for 2 and make sure they allow dogs. Zeus is coming with us. She laughed and I could hear the relief in her voice. You're certain? I'm certain. But Lauren, if you ever at any point decide to leave me at an airport to talk to your ex, understand that I'll do the same thing I did last time. Michael, if I ever do that, you should do the same thing. That would mean I'd lost my mind. Good. We understand each other. 3 months later, I stood in Changi Airport with Zeus and his carrier, Lauren beside me, and 2 suitcases containing everything I needed for this next chapter. No drama, no last-minute revelations, no one asking me to wait while they sorted out their past. As we rode the train into the city, my phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without looking, but something made me check. It was Jennifer. I thought you should know. Sarah got engaged to Derek. She seems happy, but she asked about you last week. Said she wonders if you ever think about her. I showed the message to Lauren. Are you going to respond? She asked. No. I deleted it and put my phone away. I stopped thinking about her the moment I walked through security. Do you ever regret it? Walking away like that. I looked at her, at this woman who'd been honest and direct from day 1, who'd asked me to build a life with her without games or manipulation, who understood that love wasn't about grand gestures, but daily choices. Not for a single second. Singapore suited me. The firm's Asian office was more dynamic than the Chicago branch, and I found myself working on projects across 4 continents. Lauren's company succeeded beyond expectations, and within a year, she was being featured in technology publications as one of the rising leaders in cybersecurity. We moved from a small apartment in the central business district to a condominium in Bukit Timah with a garden for Zeus. We traveled constantly, weekends in Tokyo, long weekends in Bali, a month exploring Vietnam when we both took extended leave. No trip was tainted by unfinished business or ghosts of relationships past. We were 2 people building something new, unburdened by regrets and what-ifs. I thought about Sarah exactly 3 times after that message from Jennifer. The first time was when I received a promotion to regional director. And I realized that if I'd stayed with her, if I'd waited at that airport, swallowed my dignity, and pretended her choice was acceptable, I'd still be in my old position in my old city. Slowly suffocating under the weight of someone else's disrespect masquerading as love. The second time was when Lauren and I got engaged in a small restaurant in Kyoto, just the 2 of us and a ring I designed myself. I thought about how different this felt from my relationship with Sarah. How there was no anxiety, no second-guessing, no feeling like I needed to prove my worth or compete for attention. Just 2 people choosing each other clearly and completely. The third time was 2 years after Singapore when I was back in the States for a conference. I was having drinks with former colleagues at a rooftop bar in downtown Chicago when someone mentioned seeing Sarah at a local supermarket, looking exhausted, and pushing a stroller while arguing on the phone. She'd married Derek quickly, gotten pregnant almost immediately, and was now dealing with a husband who, according to mutual friends, was exactly as manipulative as he'd been when he'd lied about his father's death. Apparently, he's extremely jealous. My former colleague Brian said, won't allow her to have male friends. Monitors her phone constantly. Classic controlling behavior. Her friends barely see her anymore. She always asks about you, someone else added. Whenever your name comes up, she gets this expression of regret. That's unfortunate, I said. The same thing I told Jennifer years ago. Cold man. 5 years together and that's all you've got. I finished my drink and stood to leave. She had a choice. She made it. What happened after is just consequence. Flying back to Singapore the next day, I sat in business class, a benefit of my position, and reflected on the past 3 years. I tripled my salary, lived in one of the world's most remarkable cities, traveled to 20 countries, built a relationship based on mutual respect, and never once compromised my boundaries or dignity for someone who didn't value them. Sarah had chosen a moment of misplaced loyalty over 5 years of partnership. She'd chosen the comfort of being needed by someone broken over the stability of being loved by someone whole. And she'd paid for that choice with years of struggling financially, emotionally, professionally. Now she was trapped in exactly the kind of relationship I'd saved myself from by walking away. I felt no satisfaction in her suffering. I simply recognized it as the natural result of her choice. When I arrived home, Lauren was in the garden with Zeus, throwing a ball in the fading evening light. She looked up when I came through the door and smiled. Not the performative smile of someone trying to prove their happiness, but the genuine contentment of someone who was exactly where they wanted to be. "How was Chicago?" she asked. "Productive? Good to be home." "Home," she tested the word. "Still feels unusual calling Singapore home." "No." I kissed her and took the ball from her hand, throwing it for Zeus. "Wherever you are is home. Wherever there's honesty and respect is home. Everything else is just geography." That night, lying in bed with Lauren reading beside me and Zeus sleeping at our feet, I thought about airports and choices and the moment your life divides into before and after. Some people spend years agonizing over decisions, weighing options, seeking advice, hoping the universe will make the choice for them. I'd learned that the best decisions are often the simplest ones. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. When someone asks you to compromise your dignity, refuse. When someone walks away from you, let them go. Sarah had walked away from me at that airport. Even though I was standing still, she'd walked towards someone who'd manipulated her, away from a relationship that could have been her future. And I'd let her go without a fight, without begging, without negotiating away pieces of myself for the chance that she might realize her mistake. She did realize her mistake, but by then I'd built a life where her realization was irrelevant. 3 years after the airport, Lauren and I got married in a small ceremony in New Zealand with 18 close friends and Zeus as the ring bearer. No drama, no former partners appearing unexpectedly, no last-minute doubts, just two people who'd chosen each other every single day since they met. Standing in front of the people they loved most and promising to keep making that choice. During our honeymoon in Queenstown, sitting beside a lake watching the sunset, Lauren asked me something she'd never asked before. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd waited? If she'd come back from talking to Derek and you'd been there?" I thought about it honestly. We would have gone to Rome. We would have had a terrible trip because I would have resented her and she would have resented me for making her feel guilty. We probably would have separated anyway, but it would have been messy and prolonged. I would have wasted another 6 months or a year hoping she'd change and she would have felt like she'd sacrificed something for me. Neither of us would have been happy. No regrets. My only regret is that I didn't see who she was sooner. But I'm grateful I saw it when I did and that I had the courage to act on it. She leaned against my shoulder. "I love that about you. You're not cruel, but you're clear. You don't play games. Life's too short for games. We get one chance to build the life we want. Why waste it on people who don't value us?" Some people would say that's harsh. That love means second chances. Love also means having enough self-respect to walk away when you're not being treated right. Sarah taught me that. I'm grateful for the lesson, even if I'm not grateful for how I learned it. We watched the sun disappear into the mountains, turning the sky orange and pink and purple. Tomorrow we drive to the coast. Then fly to Australia for the second half of our honeymoon. Next month, we return to Singapore and our careers and Zeus and the life we built together. A life based on mutual respect, clear communication, and the understanding that we chose each other not because we needed each other to be complete, but because we wanted to share our completeness with someone who valued it. Somewhere back in the States, Sarah was living with the consequences of her choice. I hoped genuinely that she'd find some measure of happiness or at least peace. But her happiness, or lack thereof, had nothing to do with me anymore. She was a person I used to know. A chapter in my story that was finished. I was the protagonist of my own life, and I'd learned the most important lesson any protagonist can learn. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Not in anger, not in drama, but in clarity, understanding your worth, and refusing to negotiate it for anyone. Sarah had left me at the airport that day, even though she'd been the one to walk away. And I'd flown toward a life that was better than anything we could have built together. That was the real story. Not the betrayal, not the dramatic exit, but what came after. The life I built when I stopped waiting for someone to choose me and started choosing myself. As Lauren and I walked back to our accommodation hand in hand, I realized I hadn't thought about that airport in months. It wasn't a wound anymore, not even a scar. Just something that had happened to someone I used to be in a life I'd left behind when I walked through security and never looked back. And I'd never been happier.